Hi, being 5:15, I'd like to call the Finance Personnel Committee to order. Stand for pledge.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We don't have anybody on Zoom, right?
No.
Thank you. Number 2, amusement device license. Nicole?
When I was here last month, when we discussed the amusement device licensure, you had asked, or the group had asked that I come back with a breakdown of the fees paid by the type of amusement device. So in the packets, that's been included. So for the 2022, 2023 licensing year, we collected a total of $2,400 for amusement devices. I think of those categories that we have on our application, a case could be made that the video games, the claw machine, and the Ticketmaster could potentially be gambling devices. So the total for those 3 categories was $1,250. You had also asked that we have a conversation with Attorney Steckbauer regarding the gambling devices. His advice was if you chose to continue to license amusement devices, in the very least, that the application for the license be updated with verbiage that it's the business owner's responsibility to determine if their machines are legal, and we're only going to be licensing legal machines. And we're not going to be, the responsibility for determining if they're legal or not legal gambling machines or video devices would not be on the city. So given that information, I guess you guys have the decision to make how you want to go forward with that. And I don't know if you want to hear from Chief Schluter's opinion on that or not, but.
Yes, I just sent Attorney Steckbauer the message and pretty much said that we should not be licensing anything that could be illegal or probably is illegal. But as far as the other amusement devices, it didn't seem like he had any problem with continuing to, license those. So that was his recommendation.
And he was going to put verbiage on there saying that, those type of machines, we're recommending that they don't include those, correct? I think he was going to put, he was going to put verbiage on our form.
Right. And these forms aren't due until July 1, so he didn't, there was no rush, I guess, on that. Anecdotally, we had, I have on there the anticipated licenses. That business owner did come in. She was definitely confused as to what's legal and illegal. And it was definitely the kind of conversation that I'm looking to avoid of, me trying to tell them what you have is potentially illegal. And, not wanting to legitimize any machines they might have that are illegal by licensing them. She was insistent and wanted to get them licensed.
But to the committee's point from last month, I think you guys wanted to continue licensing like the traditional video games, Pac-Man, that type of stuff. So this would allow you to do that yet. And we're just going to say we would recommend that we don't license those other type of machines.
And it's my understanding that they are self-reporting as to what their machines are. We don't go and check anything out prior to issuing the license. They self-report pay and with a statement on there stating. Okay.
Correct.
Correct. And I included in the packet what the application looks like that we're currently using. So this is what they fill out, just simply their business name, the number of machines they have. We don't go and, check how many dartboards they have in his self-report, and then it's included as part of their liquor license. It's actually listed on their liquor license.
I guess I know there was an issue with a tavern in town that had their own gambling machines. It wasn't through a ADI or whatever, and they got in some trouble. But if all the places have, Yankee or ADI or whatever, they come in, they pay all the taxes on it. Everything seems to be fine. Every community has this. I just don't see a problem. I mean, if we did put verbiage in it that says we're not liable, and I just hate to get rid of a revenue source.
I think the new verbiage is essentially going to say that you report what you believe to be legal. So we are not saying that they are legal. It's your responsibility to do that in case it's enforced. And I think that's what Attorney Steckbauer, was pointing at, is that it's still your responsibility to know what's legal and what's not. And if you license it, you license it, but we're telling you, we're not here to license anything illegal. And if we were to go in there at a later time and find that they are illegal, then you wouldn't be able to come back at us to be able to say you license a illegal machine, because we're telling you not to license anything illegal.
Right.
I think it's a lot of attorney verbiage.
It's like if you bought a fishing license and you went out and said, well, he sold me the license. Well, I got 25 walleyes in my possession. That's your, basically, another example, you sell somebody a $5 boat launch permit, and then they go out and they get in a boat crash. How would the city be liable for that? So I think adding the verbiage from the attorney kind of clears this up a little. I mean,
It's just an indemnification factor, so.
so it was good to look at it, and I could see that people coming in saying, well, you gave me a license.
Yeah, so if this, let's say the state came in to enforce it, this way the people can't come back and say, no, the city of New London said they're legal. We're saying, no, we're not gonna license anything illegal.
So I guess I'm a little confused. Are we not going to license the machines, or are we going to license them with different verbiage?
Well, I don't believe we go out to the bars or to the gas stations or anything like that. They self-report to us that they have I'm not sure what the wordage is up there. It's video machines, or, that they may report that we have five video games. And we assume that those are probably Pac-Man or something like that, because they're legal machines. Now, if they came in and they had 5 video poker machines there and we didn't know, because now in the wording above, it'll say, we will not license any illegal gambling machines. So they self-report it. We haven't inspected it. So we assume what they're telling us is the truth, that they're legal.
And I think that's fair. I mean, we're assuming they're doing what they need to do. We're not going there and harassing them, inspecting them. Self-report. The liability is really on them.
Right, so, for example, they got a pool table, dart machine, this, that, and some other ones. If they submit this form and they feel that something in there is illegal, they're not gonna mark it down, so at the most, the most amount of revenue we could really lose is maybe $1,200 instead of throwing it all away.
Yeah.
And not licensing any of it, so the difference is losing $2,400 or $1,250. You know what I'm saying, is if in the self-reporting process, then 3 categories, Nicole pointed out, video games, claw machine, Ticketmaster, if they all of a sudden don't report those, that's them. If the Department of Revenue comes in there, knocks on their door, we're not in the middleman saying, well, yeah, that's a regular we go through 3 times a year. So I just think that the language from the attorney, that that just clears it all up. I didn't want to see the whole revenue stream go away because, you know, $1,150 is $1,150. Rather than just crinkle it up and throw it in the waste basket. Unless it's not.
So is that the motion you want to make, John?
Yeah, I think I'd make a motion to add the language from the attorney into the self-reporting amusement device application for license. That,
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by John, second by Tim. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the land purchase, First State Bank parking lot. Chad, Judy?
So we've had a little bit of a talk in the past about First State Bank. They have officially notified through some conversation that they are interested in selling the southern lot that they've created south of their drive-through. So I think there was 4 or 5 different lots here. They've currently or recently have done a new CSM. So where the drive-through is right now, they've cleaned that up and they've combined all the lots into one. But they did make a outlot, which is this lot over here. So this is a new outlot separate from where their new First State Bank building is going to be. And they have expressed interest that they were interested in selling this lot to the city. Obviously, it would be for parking. It would be a continuation. The city currently owns site 210, which is current city parking. If you recall, we purchased the lot at 225 North Water Street for additional parking. So we have an opportunity, if we want to continue that a little bit, to make some more parking in the downtown. We have an option to purchase this. One of the benefits of that could be that it is adjacent to the existing First State Bank building, the new library, that that building only has this parking right here. That could be additional overflow parking for the new library structure and for the downtown itself. With that said, their initial ask was for a price tag of $113,000. They are not interested in just giving it to us. They've already given us a lot, so it's no reason that they're looking at selling. So right now the offer is $113,000. They've based that off of similar sales at about $7.26 per square foot, which was kind of close. I think we were a little bit under that for this lot that we purchased, but they did some other, searching, and they came up with a $7.26 per square foot, so 113,000. So we have an option of doing that. How would we pay for it? An option would be that this is all in the TID district now. We have been working with First State Bank to find out what their new building is going to be. With all the information they sent us, we sent that to Adam, our assessor. Adam has come back and determined that the preliminary assessment for the new First State Bank building is going to be about 1.3 million. Judy crunched the numbers on that. So the increment off of that would be about $31,200 per year. We still have to negotiate what our portion or our incentive the First State Bank would be yet, but potentially we have $31,200 per year to play with. If we do a similar incentive like some other properties that we've done, we could be doing up to a 50% incentive. So that hypothetically would leave us $15,600 per year as our side of the increment to do what we want to improve on the TID. So that's the point of the increment, is to improve on the TID. Parking obviously is something we can do to improve on the TID. Hypothetically, if we purchased at 113,000, and hypothetically, if we had 15,600 per year to play with, we've got 7, 8, 9 years, and we would have that paid off with that increment. So that's an option right there. And I know we've talked about in the past, or has been brought up in the past, and I don't want to have that discussion because I think that should go to Public Works. But I think we should have that discussion because it's come up in the past. We've had conversations about tenants not having any parking, in some of these businesses, or in some of those upper floor rentals. Is there an opportunity to, and I would suggest, leasing out a spot, there's other places you can buy, lease it out. I don't even know what a lease rate would be, but you can lease a stall, for a fee, monthly fee, for that tenant. So, that's an option that we can talk about. That could bring in a little bit more revenue for that purchase of that lot, but it gives us some options. So I think at this point in time, we need to decide, are we interested in that lot? And then, if we are, you would probably just direct me to continue negotiations to come up with a, firm deal to bring back to you guys for consideration.
I would think that we should at least further into it and see what you can come up with, because I mean, you never have enough parking.
Mhm.
That'll all kind of just join that whole 225 lot in.
Yep, these 3 lots then hypothetically would be all parking. Unfortunately, we've got a transformer right here that's just kind of stuck in the middle of it, and it's kind of expensive to move, so we're kind of working through that. Because moving that a little bit may help with the flow, but that's a different conversation.
I think with First State Bank donating their bank to the city, I think it would be rude of us to not entertain working with them on this lot.
Mhm.
They've already donated so much,
And their increment would help pay it off,
right?
The only
honestly.
thing that's a useless piece of property to anybody.
Mhm.
I think 100 and some thousand is way too much to pay for it. Cause you ain't gonna get nobody to purchase a parking lot. Cause it's useless. Cause the business owners on Main Street ain't gonna purchase that. For what they're asking, it's way too much money.
Like you to try to get down to what we paid for 225 per square foot. We can get down into that range.
Yep, I didn't have time. I was gonna crunch that number.
Yeah, I just think, I agree with Bernie. It's kind of expensive for a lot in the
Mhm.
middle of, but it is valuable to us. to be
Right,
able
it is,
To
but
get it, but
For
for anybody else, it's not.
way too much.
And that might just been a starting price. I mean, who knows? I mean,
Yeah, I definitely like to.
I mean, if you could
Foresee
get it for
it.
less than half of it, that would be.
Let me, if you guys want me to investigate more, if you guys are interested, I could really dig in to see what we paid per square foot for the lot, there to, just as another comparison, and continue that discussions with First State Bank.
The 225 lot is twice as valuable.
right.
The other lot is.
See, you're gaining 21 stalls. Looks like, and you're also making it congruent to other sites, which part of the value comes in that. And then it's close proximity to the library does add another element of value. So, I mean,
Definitely want to look into getting it for sure.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
It's,
You can
it's
compare-
valuable to us, but at that price, it's
compare
not.
value what you paid for the other one and everything, but you still got to look at those 2 factors. It's congruent to an existing lot of city property. It's 21 stalls and it's congruent to the library lot. And then, of course, the lot behind the thrift store there and stuff, that's private. Can't be hogging that lot up, but. So, yeah. It seems that is a little pricey. Maybe look into some comparables and negotiate a little.
So if you guys want to take me that route, I would suggest a motion to authorize me to continue negotiations with First State Bank on that parcel.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Motion been made by Bob, seconded by Tim. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to discussion on revenue sources for the 2023 budget and beyond. Chad and Judy.
Want me to take this, or?
I guess I put this back on and I think we want to continue talking about revenue sources going into 2023. And then when I approached Chad, I said, I don't know that we actually talked about the meeting we went to. So he's gonna just give you some updates about
Sure. So as many of you attended, we went to Ashwaubenon, where the League of Wisconsin Municipalities had a fall workshop. And we had a very good night talking with representatives in our area. Unfortunately, our representatives were not at that meeting. So I was kind of hoping that they were at the meeting, but there was discussion from the league about, history of the state share revenue program. And, there was some general conversations of hopefully we can start bridging the message to state representatives that there is a problem. The funding mechanism is broken. And I presented to all of you, some of the information from New London about how our state share revenue has been flat. Our levy limits have restricted us, that, we've been having our levies over the last 11 years have been under 1% of what our general fund expenses are. Well, we can't continue operating, if inflation and general, costs go up, wages, energy costs, gasoline, materials, if all that is tied to inflation at up to now 7.7%, there's no way at 1 to 0.5% increase in our levy is going to sustain us, so that message is being brought forward to the state. I think it's going to ramp up quite a bit more after the election, because obviously right now to try to hit up all of the current legislators, some of those might be leaving, new ones are coming in. So I think you're going to see a ramp up of that with state legislators coming up after the next election. It was very interesting to see. I think I forwarded it to you, but Governor Evers actually is proposing all of a sudden to increase the state shared revenue payout, which by 94,000, I think it was, or 94 million, which you haven't heard that in years. So hopefully this message is starting to influence some of the state legislators to kind of realize there is a problem. Obviously, it's probably a campaign type message right now, but hopefully it's a message that it's going to get through to them, that the state is going to take it seriously and help municipalities, because at that meeting, they talked about in the last 2 elections, 15 municipalities went to referendum just to increase their operating budget, which is unheard of. They were talking about at this next election, they expect another 15 municipalities just to go to referendum for operating costs. I mean, we should not be going to a referendum for operating costs. It should be for, if you want to build a new aquatic center or something like that. If we're trying to go to a referendum just for operating costs is not sustainable either. So, but it was really interesting. We definitely had the most people attend. I had many comments after that about they were surprised that New London had such a turnout. So we put our name on the map, which was good. But I don't know, the ones that were there, what did you think? I mean, I thought it was a really good turnout.
I thought it was very informational. Walked away with a lot of knowledge. Being able to talk to state reps that were there was awesome. I mean, even though that ours weren't there, it was awesome to hear what everybody else had to say.
Kind of impressed with the sheet that Judy had forwarded too. The handout that we had.
Mhm.
They were kind of impressed with that too. That was really informative.
We are going to send that. We tweaked it a little bit. We're going to send it back to them. And they're actually going to put that in their next magazine, the next league magazine. And I was talking to Tim Hanna, the old, the prior mayor to Appleton, and he wants to use it kind of as a template for other municipalities to kind of explain their story. So it was kind of interesting to see that. But one of the things I'm going to recommend that after the next election, I think we should invite our 2 representatives here.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get them in here and tell them what's going on, and at least, create that dialogue and that relationship so they know who you guys are too. So I think that's a really good thing. So after the next election, I think we'll invite them both over to a meeting and let them know what's going on in New London.
And then it's up to us to keep that motivation going and with our constituents and stuff like that to contact them and hopefully Mr. Evers will go through with what he says he is.
I think that we have a great opportunity through all of this to educate our own constituents and educate the public on what's happening and why things need to change. Like you said, taking just the need to increase your revenue for general operating expenses to a referendum is completely unnecessary, especially with the amount of money that is sitting in that cloud above Madison that should be shared revenue coming down. So as happy as I was to hear the conversation starting out of Governor Evers' office for increasing the shared revenue, I still looked at the math and went, it's still just a drop in the bucket. You know, they're talking 94 million out of 5 billion sitting there. So, and I know that not all 5 billion is available for shared revenue. There's other programs and other places that the money needs to go, but it's still, we have to. Our constituents have paid those taxes and we've got to get that message out there.
And I will, I think we talked about it at the previous meeting when I went through that league PowerPoint that I will be prepared after the election to go to the Lions Club, go to the Rotary Club, go to, whatever else chamber, and then just present that and say, here's factual information, contact your state legislators and let them know, what's going on. So.
And to capitalize off of that, that's something that we can support Chad with as well, as far as alderpersons and myself.
But I think we'll keep this on the agenda because we've talked about other funding sources as well. We talked about, do we want to look at a transportation aid? Do we want to look at other things? Because at that meeting, some of those legislators shot back and kind of referenced that, well, municipalities, you should be doing everything you can too on your end as well before you start coming to the state. So, we got to have those conversations as well.
Well, and when those kinds of conversations start happening, Chad, all of the TID districts that the city has started to try to get growth within the city are the kind of conversations that you talk about. Yes, we are doing what we can and we are trying to build our base so that people that come in, that the tax base doesn't go up, but we're not allowed the difference because we're being held hostage on the tax levy side. So, yeah, I feel like the city in particular in the last, 2 years has definitely taken off. The other thing is you have 20 years for the TID district to close. So, we have that time lapse in between here that you try to build also outside in those TID districts. And there's a lot of that growth going on too.
And the wheel tax is also brought up. I mean, how many more communities are starting to look at wheel taxes, and we're already at that point. So we're kind of maybe ahead of some of the other communities.
All right, moving on. Finance Director monthly reports, Judy?
So just so I was clear, we want to keep the revenue on from, from month to month so that we can, that way it's open discussion and dialogue too, if, you guys want to talk about something that you may have heard within, maybe another community or a constituent wants to talk about or have you bring up, that'll be great. So. All right, monthly reports. So we will start with the expenditures. Again, we are doing, we are within our budget, I guess is the terminology I should use. And I will go down to this one. So we should be at approximately, what did I see here? So we're in August through August 31st at about 58.33%. And the only reason that we're higher is that, again, we haven't collected for our insurance from the utility yet. That is out and billed, but sometimes it takes a month or so before that comes in, especially to get punched into the accounting system and then through into the reports, because we're always 2 months behind as I present. But at this point, I guess I'll just say that I don't anticipate any of these to be over budget. And we talked about this one today, Chad, actually. So we are a little like 2%. but this is actually looking pretty good this year compared to last year.
Mhm.
So this is one always to keep an eye on as our equipment maintenance line item, but so far so good.
You want to reference the cable fund too? Why that's. up?
Yep, and we will eventually put those designated funds into the cable 3, back into the cable 3. So this is not over budget. It's just that we have to flow those designated funds into here. And that's the upgrade they're gonna do within this room.
That's
So
half the cost of
paid,
five.
yeah. And once it gets completed, then I will move those dollars. And in February, I do a lot of those adjustments. So when I come in February, you'll see that that will come into closer to probably like 80%. And then also down here, when it comes to equipment replacement, because we are using reserves for that also. And those will flow into here in February too. That's when I kind of take everything and close it up for the year, and then we decide, okay, this, what are we gonna do with this? And what are we gonna do with that? And then we'll make those decisions within the meeting. A lot of times we'll take operational revenues in the past and move them into capital. So we have additional dollars to utilize within that fund in 2023. So hopefully we can continue that practice and do that again in 2023. So that is the expenditure report. Does anyone have any questions on that? Not, revenues also are looking good at this point. I did go ahead and add in our tax revenue at 100%. We're fortunate that both counties collect any delinquencies and they pay the municipalities in whole, so we don't have to deal with that. So any delinquent taxes are taken care of at the county level. Tax equivalent's a big one there. We will get more in November, December from the utilities. We had a few deferred assessments that came in that we can't budget for. But if parcels are sold, then those are paid for, and that's what happened here. Otherwise, I think we're going to be good. Also, I don't see anything that's not going to come to fruition on the revenue side at this point. Here's where we sold that parcel to Longevity. And again, we will look at those kinds of things once we close up in February and make decisions about what we're going to do with those dollars, especially unbudgeted revenue. Assigned and unassigned fund balance, nothing has changed in here either, but if you look down at cable TV here, this is where I'm talking that money will come from. There's $298,000 in here. I expect 81 is what we anticipated when I put this together was going to be spent on that upgrade in this room. And obviously that won't be perfect, so I'll update all that stuff in February and then remove it from the general fund and put it in the designated funds. You could see our boat launch, you know, I guess as far as the Parks Committee is concerned, by the end of this year, we expect about $52,000 in there again. So you guys can always forward think about what you might want to do with those dollars. And again, our unassigned fund balance is quite healthy at about $3 million. And our policy is about 1.8 million. So any questions on any of those? Then we go to wheel tax, and we anticipate that those dollars will be spent all on Avon Lines and Lima, that we will zero that out, and then I will add that project down here, and then we'll update the website so they can see that those dollars were spent, where they were spent. And again, we're still working on where we're gonna put those funds going into 2023, and I'll talk about that a week from tonight, actually, when I present the budget. Capital bonding projects. We still have a number of items still out there that we're working on. I don't know. I know Robert was going to work on an update on the roof, so I haven't heard anything on that, but when I do, I'll let you know. Have you heard anything, Chad? I know Ann was talking about it.
It doesn't sound like that product is still on the market, so.
So we'll just hold tight until hopefully those come in. And then the ADA projects at the parks. And then once Avon Lions and Lima, once I get, it's on my list to do, to get together with Robert next week and ask him about how far we are on getting all the billing from that. And then we have different sources that are paying for that, so I'll move them into their funds. So at the CDGB funds, we'll have wheel tax funds and then general fund capital dollars that we're utilizing for this. So I like to absorb all of the project into one fund so that if you ever want to go back and do some history about what it looked like, and then I move the funds out into their designated areas.
I will just mention with the Avon Lions in Lima project, that was estimated 1.7 million. We estimated on the very high side, worst case scenario, because we thought the base was just gonna have to be redone throughout the whole thing. And actually, once they ripped everything off, the base wasn't bad. I mean, it was good packing sand. It wasn't a lot of stone on, but it was a really good packing sand. So our actual cost for that project is going to be lower than what we expected, which is good. So
then we'll have some dollars that we can put back into this schedule right here. So that leads a good segue into this one. So I continually will update that. So then when I get the numbers, the actual numbers from the Lions, Lima, and Lima, the all project, I will continually update this schedule. So if we have additional wheel tax funding or CDGB has to be used in that project, so we will zero that one out. But ARPA funding would probably be the one that I would reduce it by and then move that into the downtown projects for what's going on in 2023 to help with that funding. So they would move into this area for 2023. So this has not changed since last month either. Like I said, I'm still waiting on some estimates before I can do those updates. And then I will move right into does anyone have any questions, any concerns about any of those? Then I'll just move into my list of things that I did, or part of the things that I did, things that I remember that I did. So obviously the lion's share of my time right now is working on just getting the 2023 budget put together and communicating with department heads. Well, it takes about a good month or so, and they're working on it a month before that. So we actually start that process in June. And then we move forward into next week is actually the presentation. But there's a lot of my time spent on that 2023 budget and putting that together and estimates and talking with department heads about what theirs looks like before you actually see it next month. And then I submitted an application to CIVMIC for our $5,000 for our non-skid floor at the fire department to help with that project, but I'm not so sure how far we're going to get with that. So I might have to switch projects in order to get something submitted in time.
Mark and I talked about this morning, we got to rebid it because nobody bid on it.
Okay.
And Mark is kind of giving me information because if we do it as a winter project, he's got to figure out with fire trucks being outside, freezing conditions. And is he going to have some trucks inside, but is there going to be a dust problem that we're trying to figure that out right now.
So I'll talk to you then about that process and the timing, because I have to have an invoice into them by the year end to get the money, and I don't want to lose it. So I might have to pick a different project just for this year, and then I would just do this next year.
Yep.
So I attended the Department of Public Works meeting for that sewer rate study with the auditor. Work with the departments on updating their capital projects information. So at this time, actually, with capital projects, I'm anticipating a capital projects meeting after our December finance meeting, just so you kind of have that thought in the back of your head. So I'm thinking we do have some things that people like to get moving on, in particular today when things are taking so long to order. So at this point, the department heads are working on updating the 10-year capital projects plan, which we will go over, and then we'll hone in on 2023 and see if we can go ahead and get some of those things moving forward. I attended CIVMIC, our City and Villages Mutual Insurance Company's finance meeting and the board meeting. And I, like I said before, build the utility for their portion of the insurance so we can get those dollars back. spent a lot of time on the transition into our new health insurance plan, and the cards did come out in the mail just in the nick of time over the weekend. So that was good. There is some other things going on in case some employees talk to you about it, about deductibles, but we have a process that we forwarded to everybody so that hopefully we can get things resolved. I knew there wasn't going to be a perfect transition from one to the next. It never is. So I asked everyone to be patient, but things will get resolved over time. It's just may take a little bit of time because it does take, as you know, if you've been to the doctor, a lot of times it takes 60 days before you even see a bill or, those things flow through their systems. I do fill in for payroll occasionally. I attended the league meeting on the state of revenue at the municipal level and the lack of sharing dollars that the state collects. Just a continuous conversation about that. Met with Chad and Jill on COVID protocol, as that's ever changing, and then attended the Wisconsin Government Finance Officers meeting. And it was good to see all of them again and to network with them.
I'm going to piggyback off of the COVID protocol thing, if you don't mind.
Nope.
So I don't know if anybody's heard, the president made a comment that the pandemic is over. I don't know if you guys caught that, but so that's telling us that the federal government is going into a post-COVID situation. We still have our emergency declaration on the books yet. So it's gonna, and I talked to our city attorney about that. It's gonna be my recommendation that we expire that emergency declaration. Since that came from council directly, we're gonna put it right back in the council. So at the next council meeting, we'll have it on the agenda that for you guys to consider to expire that emergency declaration for the COVID pandemic. I've talked to some other municipalities and they've already done it as well. So it's time to consider that. So just so you guys aren't surprised that that's on the agenda. It came out of council, so we just put it right back in the council agenda.
And the guys that go into Canada used to have to be vaccinated. They don't have to do that anymore. So currently Canada's doing the same thing.
Okay.
Some guys tried to go up there and you can't go to Canada unless you're vaccinated. You have to send in proof of it.
Sure.
And then they found out that now you don't have to do anything. So apparently, both countries follow them. You had one question for you. Is our ARPA funding guaranteed?
I have the ARPA funding in our bank account.
Okay, because I was gonna say that a lot of it can be heading down south.
Yep. I have our $759,000 in the bank account, so I have it. And they are not gonna get it back.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
We move on to a motion to go in a closed session for the following statutory exemptions. 19-.85. Subsection 1, subsection C. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which a governmental body has jurisdiction or exercising responsibility, inviting City Administrator Horth and Finance Director Adke.
So move. Second.
Motion been made by Mike, seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?